Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin by asking you a question that might shake you a little. Are you living your life or merely surviving it? Are you moving forward intentionally or just reacting to whatever the world throws your way? You are not here by accident. You are not average. There is a power, a capacity, a potential within you waiting to be unlocked. And today, we're going to uncover it. We're not here to chase success. We're here to embrace significance. So let's begin the journey. When we talk about embracing your potential, the very first step, before any strategy, habit, or change, must be belief. Belief is the foundation upon which all personal growth is built. You cannot become what you do not believe you can be. The world has conditioned many of us to think small, to stay safe, to play roles we never chose. But I'm here to tell you your potential is not limited by your past, your job title, your income, or your surroundings. It's only limited by the boundaries you draw around your own belief. Imagine a child learning to walk. That child falls repeatedly, but it never once doubts that walking is possible. Why? Because the belief is pure, unfiltered by failure or fear. Somewhere along the road to adulthood, we lose that purity of belief. We become overly cautious, afraid of looking foolish, scared of failing. But failure is not the opposite of potential. It's a part of the process. Every great innovator, artist, leader, and change maker has walked through the tunnel of failure, fueled by nothing but belief that there was light on the other side. I remember meeting a janitor at a high school who inspired this principle for me. I asked him, "What do you do here?" expecting the usual response. But he looked at me, smiled, and said, "I help shape the future." That answer shook me. He went on to say, "I clean these halls so the students walk into a clean space and feel dignity. I make sure they're proud to come to school." That man believed in the value of what he did. He saw beyond the broom in his hand and into the impact he was making. That's what belief does. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It turns a job into a mission, a moment into a movement. The truth is, too many people wait for others to believe in them first. They wait for approval, for praise, for permission. But let me say this clearly, no one can believe for you. You have to believe for yourself. Because belief is not a feeling that comes and goes. It's a decision you make daily. Every time you choose to get back up after failing, you're believing. Every time you take a step toward a goal others can't see, you're believing. Every time you silence the inner critic and take action anyway, you're believing. That belief may start as a whisper, but it grows louder with every brave decision you make. Believing in your potential doesn't mean you won't doubt, struggle, or feel fear. It means you don't allow those emotions to dictate your destiny. Your circumstances don't define your capacity. Your potential doesn't live in your comfort zone. It lives in your courage. And courage comes from belief, from waking up and choosing to say, "I may not be there yet, but I'm not going to stay here. I may not have all the answers, but I'm not going to stop asking the questions." There's a reason we remember people like Helen Keller, who was deaf and blind, but became a global symbol of perseverance. A reason we remember people like Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison and still came out with forgiveness and vision. They believed. And that belief lit fires that couldn't be extinguished by pain, doubt, or delay. You have that same fire inside you. You may not see it yet, but it's there, ready to be sparked. Right now, you need to stop underestimating what you're capable of. You've already overcome things that were meant to destroy you. You've already endured storms that others would have collapsed in. That's not weakness. That's evidence of your strength, of your resilience, of your hidden power. You don't need someone else to validate your worth. You were born with value, born with vision, born with something only you can give this world. So here's what I want you to do. Every morning, look in the mirror and say, "I am capable. I am worthy. I am here for a reason." Say it until your voice stops shaking. Say it until your doubts lose their grip. Say it until your actions begin to align with your belief. Because belief is not just about what you think. It's about what you do. Let your belief show up in how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you pursue your goals. You are not a mistake. You are not average. You are full of promise, full of purpose, full of untapped potential. And today is the day you start living like it. Being proactive is the single most empowering mindset you can adopt if you want to unlock your true potential. Most people go through life in a reactive state, constantly responding to circumstances, other people's opinions, or temporary emotions. They wait for the right time, the right mood, or the right opportunity. But the truth is, the right time is now. The right person to take charge of your life is you. And the right mindset to lead you there is proactivity. Being proactive means you recognize that you are not a product of your conditions, but a product of your decisions. It's understanding that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is your power to choose. Think about how often we give away that power. Someone says something hurtful, and we react without thinking. A setback happens, and we sink into discouragement. The weather is bad, traffic is worse. Someone cuts us off, and suddenly we're carrying that negativity all day. Why? Because we've allowed our environment to dictate our internal state. That is the essence of being reactive, letting outside forces write the script of your life. But proactive people don't do that. They write their own script. They decide how to think, how to feel, and how to act, regardless of what's happening around them. Let me give you a real-life example. I once worked with a young woman who had every reason to feel victimized. She grew up in poverty, lost her father at a young age, and was told by multiple teachers that she wouldn't amount to much. For a while, she believed them. But one day she made a decision. Not a wish, not a hope, but a decision that she would no longer live in reaction to the past. She began waking up early, studying harder, and speaking affirmations over her life. She got into college, started her own business, and now she mentors girls who come from the same neighborhood she did. What changed her life wasn't luck or timing. It was proactivity. She stopped waiting and started moving. That kind of change starts when you accept full responsibility for your life. Not blame, but responsibility. There's a difference. Blame looks backward and keeps you stuck. Responsibility looks forward and sets you free. You might not be responsible for everything that's happened to you, but you are responsible for what you do next. You are responsible for how you respond. And that response, those little choices each day, are what shape your destiny. We all know people who are stuck in the habit of saying, "That's just the way I am," or "I can't help it. This is how I was raised." But the moment you believe that your identity is fixed, you've stopped growing. Proactive people don't say, "I can't." They ask, "How can I?" They don't say, "That's not fair." They say, "What's my next move?" They understand that their future is not something they enter. It's something they create. Every action they take is a brick in the foundation of their tomorrow. And proactivity is not just about big life changes. It's about the little choices. It's choosing to get up when you don't feel like it. It's choosing to listen instead of defend. It's choosing to apologize first, to take the initiative, to rise above instead of stoop down. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is asking yourself, what can I do right now? That one question shifts you from passive to powerful, from waiting to doing, from reacting to creating. Even in situations where you don't have control over the outcome, you always have control over your attitude. You can choose to be bitter, or you can choose to be better. You can dwell on what went wrong, or you can focus on what you can learn. You can complain, or you can create. The choice is always yours. So I challenge you today, stop giving your power away. Stop waiting for permission, for motivation, for perfect timing. Start choosing your response. Start owning your time. Start becoming the kind of person who acts with intention, not emotion. Write your own script. Don't let life happen to you. Make life happen for you. Because once you become proactive, you're no longer a passenger in your story. You're the author. and the pen has been in your hand all along. Clarifying your deepest values is one of the most powerful things you can do to embrace your full potential. Without clear values, you will always feel lost, no matter how successful you become. You might achieve goals, make money, build a name for yourself, and yet feel empty inside. That's because success without alignment is just noise. Fulfillment comes when what you do on the outside matches what you believe on the inside. Values are not optional. They are your compass. They are the unseen forces guiding your decisions, shaping your habits, and determining your long-term direction. When you're unclear about your values, you're like a ship without a rudder, easily tossed by the winds of pressure, opinion, and distraction. Many people are living lives based on inherited values, not chosen ones. They're following expectations handed to them by family, culture, or society without ever asking, "Is this really me?" They're climbing ladders that don't even lean against the walls they believe in. And the result is stress, burnout, confusion, and a quiet kind of sadness that's hard to name but easy to feel. On the other hand, people who live by their deepest values experience a kind of inner peace, even when things are hard. They know who they are, what they stand for, and what matters most. That kind of clarity creates power. I once worked with a man who built a very successful business from the ground up. From the outside, he had everything: money, influence, recognition. But during one of our sessions, he broke down in tears. He said, "I don't even know why I'm doing any of this. I'm never home with my kids. I've become someone I don't even like." That moment was raw, but it was also sacred. It became the turning point. He took time away from work, reconnected with his family, and made a decision to restructure his business to reflect his real values: faith, family, and freedom. Today, he's not just more fulfilled. He's actually more successful, because everything he does now comes from alignment. That's the power of living your values. They don't just keep you grounded, they elevate you. They give you confidence, clarity, and conviction. When you know what matters most, you stop chasing what doesn't. You stop needing everyone's approval. You stop comparing your journey to others. You find freedom in authenticity. And authenticity is magnetic. People can feel it when you're living true to who you really are. But you can't live your values if you don't know what they are. That's why I challenge you to take time to reflect. Ask yourself, what do I stand for? What kind of person do I want to be remembered as? What am I willing to sacrifice for? These aren't surface-level questions. They require honesty, courage, and silence. Turn off the noise of the world and listen to your own heart. What do you care about so deeply that it keeps you up at night? What brings you alive when you talk about it? What injustice breaks your heart? The answers to these questions are clues to your values. Once you identify them, write them down. Not just in your mind, but on paper. Make them visible. Carry them with you. And then begin to align your life, your time, your goals, your relationships with those values. If you value growth, are you learning daily? If you value connection, are you truly present with those you love? If you value integrity, are you living with honesty, even when it's inconvenient? Alignment requires action. It's not enough to say you value something. You have to structure your life around it. And it won't always be easy. Living by your values means making hard choices. It might mean saying no to opportunities that look good on the surface, but don't match who you are. It might mean disappointing people who expect you to be someone you're not. But the reward is freedom, peace, purpose. And those are far more valuable than applause. Remember this, your values are not just about you. They influence everyone around you. When you live your truth, you give others permission to live theirs. You become a mirror, a model, a lighthouse. And in a world full of confusion, that clarity is a gift. So take the time to discover what matters most. Let your values lead. Because when your life is built on what you truly believe in, no storm can shake you. You will walk with purpose, speak with confidence, and live with a fire that nothing can put out. That's what it means to live in alignment. That's what it means to embrace your potential. Beginning with the end in mind means living your life intentionally, not accidentally. It's about creating a vision of your ideal future, and then working backward to align your actions with that vision. Most people drift through life without ever stopping to ask where they're going. They wake up, go to work, handle tasks, respond to messages, and repeat that pattern day after day. But time passes quickly, and one day they look up and realize they've spent years climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. That's why this principle matters so deeply. You can't afford to live passively. If you don't define your end, someone else will define it for you. And that's how you end up living someone else's dream instead of your own purpose. The first time I truly understood this idea was during a powerful exercise where I was asked to imagine my own funeral. Not in a dark or morbid way, but with deep intention. I was told to picture the people who would speak, what they might say about me, what legacy I would leave behind. That moment shifted something inside me. I stopped asking what I wanted to have and started asking who I wanted to become. Because that's the real goal. Not just achieving things, but becoming someone worth remembering. And that process begins by having a clear picture of the end. When you start with the end in mind, every day has direction. You're no longer wandering. You're building. You know what to say yes to and what to say no to. You understand that not all movement is progress. Just because something is urgent doesn't mean it's important. Just because something is popular doesn't mean it's purposeful. You begin filtering your decisions through a deeper lens. Does this move me closer to who I want to be and the life I want to live? I once mentored a young woman who felt like she was constantly busy, but not going anywhere. She had ambition, but no clarity. She was working hard, but it felt empty. I asked her to write down in vivid detail what she wanted her life to look like in 10 years. Not just professionally, but emotionally, spiritually, relationally. She wrote about wanting to make an impact, to mentor young girls, to feel connected to her faith, to have a strong marriage and deep friendships. And then I asked, does your current schedule reflect that vision? Her eyes welled up with tears, because the answer was no. That conversation changed her. She didn't quit her job the next day, but she started making intentional changes. She created time for what mattered. She said no to things that looked good but didn't align. And over the years, her life transformed, not by chance, but by clarity. You can do the same. You don't need all the answers right now, but you do need a compass, a vision that pulls you forward. So I invite you to take some time and ask yourself the deeper questions. What do I want people to remember about me? What kind of character do I want to be known for? What kind of impact do I want to make? What kind of relationships do I want to build? When you answer these, you gain power, because now your goals aren't random, they're rooted in purpose. And this isn't just about long-term life vision. It applies to your daily habits. If you begin each day with the end in mind, you stop wasting time. You start each morning with intention. You ask, what do I want to feel by the end of the day? Proud, peaceful, accomplished, connected, and then you structure your day to produce that outcome. This one shift from reactive to intentional living will radically change your focus, your discipline, and your satisfaction. Of course, life throws curveballs. Plans change. Goals evolve. But when you have a strong vision, you can adapt without losing direction. You can pivot without getting lost. And even when the journey takes unexpected turns, you know why you started and where you want to end up. Living with the end in mind gives you resilience. It keeps you grounded during chaos and hopeful during delay. It helps you endure setbacks because you know they're just part of the road, not the end of it. And perhaps most importantly, it fills your days with meaning because you're not just passing time, you're building a legacy, brick by brick, choice by choice. So don't wait for a crisis to force you to reflect. Don't wait for permission to envision a life that excites you. Take ownership now. Close your eyes and picture the end. Then open your eyes and start walking with purpose. Because the future doesn't begin someday. It begins today with you. Focusing on what you can control is one of the most liberating and powerful choices you can make in life. So many people waste their energy, their peace, and their time worrying about things completely outside of their influence. They obsess over the economy, what other people think, the past they can't change, or the future they can't predict. This constant anxiety, frustration, and distraction comes from trying to manage the uncontrollable. But the truth is, peace and progress only begin when you shift your attention away from what's beyond your reach and fully engage with what's in your hands. The moment you start living inside your circle of control is the moment you begin to reclaim your life. Imagine two circles. One contains all the things you have no power over, other people's actions, external events, unexpected circumstances, the opinions of others. The other circle contains what you can control, your attitude, your effort, your reactions, your words, your habits. Most people live in the first circle. They wake up and immediately scroll through bad news. They get caught up in someone else's drama. They spend hours replaying things they can't go back and fix. They stress over what others may or may not say, think, or do. And the result is emotional exhaustion with very little progress. But the people who achieve inner strength and outer success are the ones who focus on what they can do right now. They stop fighting battles that don't belong to them, and they start winning the ones that do. I once knew a man who was laid off from a job he loved. At first, he did what most people would do. He panicked, got angry, and blamed the company. But after a few days, he made a radical choice. He said, "I can't control the decision they made, but I can control the decision I make now." He set a new routine. Every morning he woke up early, worked on his resume, learned new skills, exercised, networked, and applied for positions. Within 3 months, he didn't just get another job. He got a better one. That wasn't an accident. That was the reward of taking ownership of what he could control. There's real power in that mindset. You may not be able to control how someone treats you, but you can control whether you hold on to bitterness or choose forgiveness. You may not be able to control what happens in the world, but you can control what you let into your mind, what you say, and how you act. You may not be able to control the timing of your goals, but you can control whether you stay committed or give up. Every time you bring your focus back to your own choices, you take your power back. Letting go of what you can't control doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've decided to care more about where your energy goes. It means you've learned a separate concern from responsibility. It means you're wise enough to recognize what's yours to carry and what's not. And that clarity changes everything. It frees up mental space. It creates emotional stability. It builds momentum. You stop waiting for life to be fair or perfect before you take action. You start making progress in small, meaningful steps. And those steps compound. When you control your habits begin to shape your results. When you control your mindset changes how you see every challenge. When you control your words, your relationships improve. When you control your focus, your creativity increases. When you control your time, your productivity multiplies. You don't need to change the world overnight. You just need to change what you do next. This principle applies in every area of life. In your work, you can't control the market, but you can control your discipline and innovation. In your health, you can't control genetics, but you can control what you eat, how you move, and how you rest. In your relationships, you can't control the past, but you can control how present and intentional you are moving forward. You may not have total control, but you always have enough control to make a difference. And that difference starts with a decision. So today, take an honest inventory. What are you holding on to that you can't change? What's stealing your peace, your attention, your energy? Then ask yourself, what's in my control right now? Maybe it's your attitude. Maybe it's your words. Maybe it's your next move. Focus there. Live there. Grow there. Because that's where your strength is. That's where your power is. And that's where your potential will come alive. Sharpening the saw is about renewal. It's about taking care of the one asset that affects everything you do, yourself. In a world that glorifies hustle, speed, and constant productivity, many people run themselves into the ground in the name of success. They think rest is weakness, slowing down is failure, and pausing means falling behind. But the reality is the opposite. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead if you're burned out. You can't create your best work, build meaningful relationships, or live with purpose if you're constantly depleted. Sharpening the saw means choosing long-term effectiveness over short-term exhaustion. It's the commitment to recharge so you can keep showing up at your best. Picture a woodcutter who spends all day sawing trees but never takes time to sharpen his blade. He works harder and harder, but the saw gets duller. The work becomes slower, the effort more painful, the results less impressive. Then someone asks, "Why don't you take time to sharpen your saw?" And he replies, "I don't have time. I'm too busy cutting." That's how most people live. They're too busy to sleep enough, too rushed to eat well, too overwhelmed to exercise, too distracted to think, too wired to pray or reflect. They're grinding with a dull blade, and they wonder why life feels like an uphill battle. Sharpening the saw involves renewing yourself in 4 dimensions: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Neglect any one of them long enough, and it affects all the others. Your body affects your energy. Your mind affects your clarity. Your emotions affect your relationships. Your spirit affects your sense of meaning. The strongest people don't ignore these areas. They invest in them, because they know their potential is directly connected to their level of renewal. Let's start with the physical. This doesn't mean you have to be a professional athlete. It means honoring your body as the vehicle through which you live your purpose. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking water, moving your body, taking breaks when needed? These simple habits create the foundation for everything else. I once worked with a high performer who felt stuck. His ideas were slowing down, his patience was thin, his energy was drained. It turned out he was sleeping less than 5 hours a night, skipping meals, and working 12-hour days without breaks. He didn't need a new strategy, he needed rest. After prioritizing sleep and nutrition, his performance and mood skyrocketed. He didn't change his intelligence. He sharpened his saw. Mentally, sharpening the saw means constantly learning, challenging your assumptions, feeding your mind with quality input. Read books, listen to podcasts, take time to think without distraction. So many people consume junk information, mindless scrolling, negative news, gossip, and then wonder why their creativity is gone. Your brain is a garden. What you plant in it determines what grows. Make time to nourish it with wisdom, not noise. Emotionally, sharpening the saw means investing in your relationships and your emotional intelligence. Are you connecting with people who uplift you? Are you expressing your feelings in healthy ways? Are you practicing empathy, listening deeply, and choosing forgiveness when needed? The emotional dimension is often ignored until something breaks, but proactive people take care of it daily. They express appreciation, resolve conflict early, and spend time with people who matter. They don't just work for success. They cultivate joy and connection. Spiritually, renewal means grounding yourself in something bigger than you. Whether that's faith, meditation, nature, gratitude, or silence, you need a place to return to when life gets noisy. It's where your values are clarified, your vision is refreshed, and your inner compass is realigned. One of the most successful entrepreneurs I know starts every morning with 10 minutes of silence. No phone, no meetings, just space to connect with his purpose. He calls it his daily alignment. That space, he says, is where his best decisions are born. Sharpening the saw isn't about being selfish. It's about being smart. You can't give the world your best if you're always running on fumes. It's not a break from success. It's the foundation of it. When you prioritize renewal, you show up with more energy, creativity, and resilience. You make better choices. You become more present. You live with clarity and intention instead of reactivity and survival. So ask yourself today, where am I running dull? What part of me is exhausted, depleted, or neglected? Then make a plan. Schedule rest the way you schedule meetings. Block out time to read, to walk, to pray, to connect. Even 15 minutes a day can begin to change your rhythm. Because the best investment you'll ever make is not in your job, your business, or your image. It's in becoming the strongest, clearest, most alive version of yourself. That's how you sustain excellence. That's how you protect your purpose. That's how you embrace your potential. Living a life of contribution is the ultimate expression of embracing your potential. It's about shifting your mindset from, what can I get, to, what can I give? So many people spend their lives chasing personal success, money, recognition, comfort, and yet they feel a deep void that nothing external can fill. That's because real fulfillment doesn't come from accumulation. It comes from contribution. You were not created just to consume, to survive, or to stay comfortable. You were created to make a difference. You have something inside you that someone else needs. An insight, a skill, a word, a helping hand. And the moment you decide to live with the intention of giving rather than only receiving, everything about your life begins to elevate. Contribution does not require fame, a platform, or a title. It begins in the small choices you make every single day. It's in how you treat the people around you, how you listen when someone speaks, how you serve even when it's inconvenient. It's not always grand or dramatic. Sometimes it's a quiet word of encouragement to a struggling friend. Sometimes it's taking time to teach someone what you've learned the hard way. Sometimes it's choosing kindness over judgment, patience over anger, love over indifference. These are small acts with massive ripple effects. You may never fully see the impact you make, but that doesn't mean it's not real. Often the greatest contributions are the ones that go unnoticed but never forgotten. I once met a woman who worked as a nurse in a small hospital. She told me she didn't think she was doing anything special, just showing up for her patients. But I spoke to a young man she cared for during a traumatic recovery, and he said, "That woman saved me, not just physically, but emotionally. She made me feel human again." What she saw as routine, he experienced as life-changing. That's what contribution looks like. It's not about recognition. It's about responsibility. The responsibility to use what you've been given to lift someone else. Living a life of contribution also means recognizing that your story matters. The struggles you've overcome, the lessons you've learned, the battles you've fought, all of that has shaped you for a reason. Your scars can become someone else's survival guide, but only if you're willing to share. Too many people stay silent, thinking they're not qualified to help others. But the truth is, you don't need to be perfect to be valuable. You don't need to have it all figured out to make a difference. You just need to be real, willing, and present. Your story, your presence, your example might be exactly what someone else needs to take their next step. Contribution also gives you perspective. When you focus only on your own problems, they tend to grow. But when you step outside yourself and start serving others, your problems shrink and your capacity expands. You begin to realize that you're not alone in your pain, and that helping others can actually heal you too. The act of giving becomes a source of strength, not just for others, but for yourself. It builds your resilience, deepens your gratitude, and strengthens your sense of purpose. And the beautiful thing about living a life of contribution is that it multiplies. One act of kindness can spark a chain reaction. One generous decision can inspire 100 more. One person living with open hands and an open heart can transform a workplace, a family, a community. You don't need a stage to make a difference. You just need to show up every day with the intention to add value wherever you are. So today, ask yourself not just, what do I want to achieve? But, what do I want to give? What legacy do you want to leave behind? What kind of difference do you want to be remembered for? Then take action. Mentor someone. Volunteer. Offer a word of hope. Speak life where there's been silence. Lead by example. Use your influence, no matter how small, to build something that will outlive you. Because in the end, we won't be measured by how much we had, but by how much we gave. Not by how many people served us, but by how many people we lifted. That is the essence of a life well lived. That is how you move from potential to purpose. That is how you change the world, not by waiting, but by giving. And the best part, the more you give, the more you grow. The more you serve, the more you shine. And the more you contribute, the more you become the person you were always meant to be. Thank you, everyone!